who has to stand up here and tell you about drugs and alcohol because it's part of the curriculum, and tell you be careful and how many drinks you have before you get a DWI, or to tell you that cocaine will blow up your liver and heroin's going to ruin your life and kill you. I'm not that guy. And this isn't a Scared Straight program, like you might hear. This isn't the DARE program with Officer Kip in 5th grade. I'm not here to tell you how bad jail was. I'm here to share my message because I feel that my path and the way my life went is reflective of the possibilities of what can happen to you guys if you're not aware and if you're not thinking about your choices that you make. I hear stories. I remember a few years back, famous actor Philip Seymour Hoffman, they found him dead with a needle in his arm from heroin. And I remember, you know, when the scuttlebutt was around about that people were going, can you believe it? How could he, you know, so much going for him and so much talent. How could he do that and all that money? And I say, I absolutely can believe it. My favorite one, because I'm coming from a sports background, here's a name some of you might have heard of. Guy's name was Chris Herring, okay? And he was a superstar basketball player, and I mean big-time superstar in high school, in college, ends up with the Boston Celtics.
Hey, yeah!
I'm with you. Ends up with the Celtics, and when he arrives in Boston, unbeknownst to anybody except some of the players, because he's always at practice, he came off the bench so he didn't play a lot, but he is a cocaine, Oxycontin, heroin addict, alcoholic, who meets his drug dealer routinely 45 minutes to an hour before game time in his Celtics uniform and warm-ups outside the Boston Garden. And to some people, and he speaks now, he's clean and sober now, and he speaks, and to some people they say, are you kidding me? I mean, how can you? But that's the power of this disease, is your ability to masquerade it, and the ability, no matter who you are, no matter what kind of money you have, to grab a hold of you and take control of your life. I say it's easier, it doesn't surprise me more when people got all the money in the world. I mean, when I was as an alcoholic and addict, because you got to spend money on drugs and alcohol, you know, my whole paycheck was gone. Who knows what would have happened? I'd be dead if I ever hit it big with, you know, to that level. And that's why it doesn't surprise me. And that's the message I want to send to you, is that you got to be aware. And this, what I'm going to share with you is and was my life. If I was going to give this a title, it would be Life Comes at You Fast, Be Prepared, and Get in the Game. So, my name is Alessio, and I'm a father, I'm a coach, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a drug addict, and I'm a friend to a lot of people. And I was once like you. I'm from Seneca Falls, great upbringing, great parents. My mother was a kindergarten teacher for 30 years over in Waterloo. My father, for 25 years, was a principal in Seneca Falls. We had a beautiful house. You know, I didn't, decent amount of money. I didn't need to worry about anything. And we lived comfortably. And most of all, because people always say, geez, you know, I wonder what happened to that guy. Must not have been too smart. I was smart. We had 179 people in our class. I think that's more than you got these days. And when I graduated, I was 20th. Not too shabby, right? And really, because I started smoking pot a lot around sophomore, junior year, I probably was closer to the top 10 in my class, but then I started going downhill. But most importantly, when I think about who I was, in my main identity, there was this guy. I was a basketball player. It was who I was. It was what I did. I walked around town with a basketball. I went to every camp. I was down to the rec. I was decent. I was always going to camps, always practicing, and that became my identity as a straight-up baller, all right? And I tell you that because it also was when I learned really what my message is, not just about sports. I help out with the varsity a little bit. They've heard me say it before. I know my travel team did when I called them up, had them stand up at the junior high presentation, was practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes predictable. And that's what we do in sports when we are practicing, and often with my crew at the end of practice, we send them all to the line, and you got to go to the line. I tell them about 20 foul shots and report back to me on how many you made, and we're doing that, and nobody's coming up saying 20 for 20, 20, and that's not my expectation. I don't expect 20 for 20. We're hoping maybe as a team we shoot 70%. So it's not about being perfect. We want to be predictable. We want to be predictable so that we know in basketball, when we get to game time, I can pretty much bank on that as a team, if we're going to the line for 10 shots, we're going to get 7 points out of it. We're predictable. And that's the way life's going to be for you. Habits that you practice now, good or bad, are going to be the habits that you carry on. And they'll become who you are. So I went on to play in college, and what had happened as I was involved in sports in high school and then into college, where it took me into social situations. I was popular, people liked me, and it took me in situations, mainly parties, where there were drugs and alcohol. And that was really the start. And so, you can only do so much a lot of times, and when you're living with your parents and you're in high school, although, you can do a lot, let's face it. But when you went into college now, you got nobody to report to. So I started getting worse. And when I was in college, I was no longer Mike Alessio, student athlete. Forget about the student part of it. Because the thing about college that I forgot to go to class every day, okay? So every day for me, it was only basketball player Mike Alessio. I played at 3 different colleges. I ended up starting point guard at RIT. Way better than Coach Korzeniewski, by the way. Not quite as good as Matt Berkey, though. And I was Mike Alessio, basketball player, and I was Mike Alessio, the partier extraordinaire, okay? I was play basketball and partied every night. I slept until practice, which was 4 o'clock. Practice started all over again. Never went to class. And I was the leader of this team. I mean, I wasn't the captain, but I was, in the end, one of the seniors. And they relied on me. You guys, if you know anything about basketball or sports, and that's not to say sports is the only, important thing. It could be, what other extracurricular activities you're in. There are certain people that was a leader. Very often with a team in basketball, your point guard is your leader. I played more minutes than everybody. I led the team out there. I was the coach on the floor. And there were many games on the weekends when we played in the afternoon that I had never gone to bed. My drug of choice was cocaine, and I party all night. Quick shower, ask myself, how could I have done that? Show up, suit up. I'm sure that, nobody else, there weren't a lot of partiers at that level on my team. They knew what was going on, but, I was point guard, I was decent. Could I have been way better? Could have been way better. But I owe that team an apology, and and I haven't made it yet. I'm going to speak to RIT, and my coach is still there. My coach at RIT, he's in his like 26th year now, or 30th year, and it was his first year I was there. And I let that team down, but I didn't really know it. I didn't know. I thought I was just doing what college kids do. But really what had happened then was my path had really started to have been chosen. And that was the path of an alcoholic and a drug addict. I can tell you when I left RIT, the next 15 years of my life were that message, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes predictable. I was single, I had a decent job, and I was in the restaurant business, and from every night my shift end was right to the bar. I was a bar guy. Part of the reason I never thought I had a problem is because I never drank at home. I don't even have any beer in my refrigerator. I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm at the bar every night till 2 o'clock, finding the people who had drugs, and that's what I did for the next 15 years, and it really was just a road. Although I wasn't getting in trouble yet with the law, it was just a road of life starting to pass you by. It was a road of despair and sadness, although you wouldn't know it if you ran into me at the bar. I was a fun guy to be around, I thought. And then I had good friends. But I always knew, and I'd say to myself, you gotta stop. There was something good inside me that said, you gotta stop. You gotta slow down. But you see, I always had the excuse, and this is the disease of alcoholism, that tells you, you're gonna be okay. All you gotta do is stick around. It would be, I'd change when I found the right girlfriend. Or I was in the restaurant business, so I would get transferred to, because I was single, they would know, I didn't have any ties, so if something popped up where it would be a promotion, I would get transferred to another location. And every time I got transferred, I said to myself, here we go, this is my chance. Go to that new town, cut ties with everybody here, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit drinking, I'm going to quit Coke, and inside I knew there was something, that athlete, I said I got to get in shape, I'm going to be a good runner. I gave up on the pros, I knew I wasn't going to be in the pros anymore at that point. Now that I'm clean, I think I'm going to get the call one of these days. Every NBA draft time, I sit by my phone. I think this year's going to be the year. And every time I get to the new place, I get a nice apartment. Way more than I could afford. Beautiful apartment, because I was going to turn it around, save money. I never paid any bills. Save money, and find a good girlfriend. And the other thing, join a gym. I'd go right to the gym, and I'd join it, have my stuff on, get some free workouts in it. The guys, we're going to do this, and we'll work out. And then, and I would do that for about 2 weeks, okay? And then 2 weeks would go, and I'd say, you know what? I'd be at home. What the heck? Go out for one drink, And I'd go out to the bar, and I'm an outgoing guy, make some friends, and a couple drinks. Might not have gotten drunk that night, I don't know, but I know that shortly after, however the time frame was, I'd be there every night. And also, you had some secret drug addict sense that you just find the people who had the cocaine, and there I was hanging out with them again. And then the whole cycle started over again. And so that's where I was. And I say, now, why didn't I have control over it? And why didn't I have the willpower just to say no, or to see that life wasn't going right? And so this is the only textbook definition I'm going to give you of, because I don't like talking about the specifics of the disease of alcoholism or the disease of drug addiction, but really it comes down to this, and this is the definition of alcoholism. The human body is the ultimate and superior adapter to anything we do. So we know that If you want to get bigger and you're going to the gym, you know, you're hitting the weights and you're going, your body is going to react and adapt and you're going to get bigger. You're going to be in good shape. If you're running, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're playing an instrument, if you're a good reader and you read a lot, you're going to be a faster reader. You're going to comprehend more. The body's the ultimate adapter. If you hurt a knee or something like this, you rehab it, it's going to come back. Well, that happens for bad habits too. So what happens in the case of an alcoholic is that practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes predictable. I drank so much and so consistently and frequently that at some point my body chemistry changed, the cells in my body changed, and that it now needed alcohol. It's like a switch in your body. I don't know when it happens. I couldn't tell you at what point I personally, it's different for everybody, turned into an alcoholic. But clearly I did, and it's like a switch, and that once it's turned on, it doesn't go off. So I'm clean and sober now for 12 years. If I wanted to go back out and drink, it's called a progressive illness too, in that I would be back in the same boat, not only where I was 12 years ago when I quit drinking, the progressiveness of the disease would take me to a point as if I'd been drinking heavily for 12 years. So in other words, you give me about 2 weeks, I'd probably be dead, gone, whatever. So the switch is on, and what the disease is called, it's called the phenomenon of craving. So your body, when it tastes a little bit of alcohol, or if it doesn't get alcohol, it convinces you that you got to get to a bar or do something to get alcohol in your system. And once you do drink it, it tells you you need more. So my body was, the switch had been turned on, so not only did I have that going for me, but it also adapted for me to know that I had to work. So my body also adapted to know that even though I may have been up drinking and snorting cocaine until 5 o'clock in the morning, when that alarm went off at 6, my body knew it had to get it together and get to work. So my body had adapted to say, okay, I'm up. Yeah, I'm hating life, don't get me wrong. But I'm in the shower, quick shower, stare at myself in the mirror, see how bad I look. Coffee, 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 and to work. And then what would happen? You muscle your way through your work day every day. I did. And I can't tell you, thousands of times I'd sit there and go, oh my God, I just can't wait till tonight to get home and go to sleep. I'm so tired. It takes its toll on you. It's like work. But then, a little steam in my step about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, time to go. You know what? I don't feel that bad today. What am I going to do? I'll stop out and have one, right? And there we go. Once again, we're right back in the same cycle. So the question is, why don't you see it? And why don't other people see it to realize that you might have a problem? And because my claim to fame was, as I told you, I don't have any booze in the house, and hey, alcoholics, they drink in the morning. An alcoholic is a guy who, before you go to work, you gotta get a couple nips in you to balance you out. I mean, I was just a social guy. So here's the problem, bear with me 1 second. This is a problem with society and with us because this is what we think the alcoholic is, guys, right here. All right? Here's my little bottle. All right? You guys see them. You might not see them around town, but every town's got one, a smelly bum. I mean, if you watch TV and you watch the movies, what do you always see? They got it right here. So, to me, I don't drink in the morning, and I'm not this guy. I got no problem. I'm just a kid, having fun. This might be an alcoholic, but it isn't 90% of people with drug and drinking problems out there. This point guard is more reflective of what an alcoholic could be. Or this bonnet manager who made a decent income and everybody thought was a great guy and a leader of a lot of people with a lot of responsibility. That's what an alcoholic could look like. And it could just look like a normal person. But with our society, this is what we think the alcoholic is. And that's a problem, because we don't identify it as such. So, what I want to share with you today, it's fun talking to this group. I didn't share this with the junior high kids. I don't want to scare them. It's funny talking to different levels of their excitement, or what you're telling. My son was in the junior high. I think he had to make a trip to the bathroom when he saw that up here. But I've got 1,000 stories of stupidity and bad judgment that I could share. But there's one story when I speak that I'd like to share, because I probably can honestly say it was the worst day of my life. And I didn't ever get busted or anything. But when I think back of it, it just saddens me so much, and hopefully you'll see the craziness of where a disease can take you. So the thing to remember when I'm telling this story is I can't remember the exact age, but I probably was in the 36 or 7-year-old age. So I'm no kid. This isn't a kid happening to. I'm a manager, an upper level manager at a company. So associated with somebody you might know who would be a respected teacher or principal or something. And that guy that you see every day that you're thinking, hey, that guy, he's a well-respected adult. That's me at that point. So it was a Wednesday night. We used to get paid on a Wednesday night. And so I'm using often. I'm pretty much at work every day. But for some reason on this Wednesday night, I don't even know why, because normally I was a small-time user. So if I'm buying Coke, I don't know what you know about drugs, but I'm buying small quantities because I don't have a ton of money, and we're doing it with some friends or something. But on this particular night, for some reason, I decided to buy a little more than normal, with the intent that, yeah, I'm going to get some tonight, we'll party a little bit, hang on to it for the weekend, right? So it's a Wednesday night. I'm already in hot water sometimes at work for calling in and stuff, and they know I'm a partier. So the night's going on and we're partying a little bit more. So there comes a point where I'm starting to wonder, oh man, I'm pretty screwed up. I gotta stop, or I'm never gonna make it to work. But the thing about drugs and alcohol, sometimes you don't stop and you keep going. So I had kept going into the night because I got a bunch of cocaine. And we're drinking, and now it's at the point where I clearly got to call in. So I call into work and I make up an excuse that I was living at home at this point, and I was thinking about buying a house. So I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to be late today because I gotta look at some houses. I gotta look at a house. Oh, okay, no problem. I'll call you. I'm not sure. It'll probably just be a couple hours. I'm trying to buy some time, to get it together. And now I got a call on the phone, and I knew this girl who was a real estate lady. And so I said, hey, remember that house I was talking to you about? And I'm probably talking a mile a minute. You think I can get over there this morning and look at it? And she's already suspect. It sounded suspicious and sketchy right from the get-go. I don't blame her. I think I called her at 6 in the morning. And so I meet her at this house, and God, I can only imagine what she must have thought, because I looked a wreck. And she shows me the house, and I leave, and I'm still out of my mind. I know I can't go to work, so I call to try to buy myself more time, and I say, geez, I think there's another house I need to look at. Call back. Now I call, and I say, geez, I got pulled over, and there's a problem with my license. Which didn't happen. Something they easily could have checked. I said, and they're hanging on to me for a little bit, and I hang up, thinking, okay, they got it. So I still got a lot of drugs. I know I can't go to work. I can't go home because I figured work will come to home. So I started driving. Probably 9:30 or 10 in the morning. And there are bars open early, so I started driving company car. Started out in Waterloo, hit a bar, drinking. What am I going to do? Leave the bar because I was so paranoid. I figured somebody else would find me. I go to a car wash because I needed somewhere to get in where you couldn't see anything. Cocaine, cocaine, cocaine. Leave the car wash. Next bar. I did that all day long, from here to Geneva, Canandaigua. And each time I stopped calling work, I knew I was done. And each time I was in those car wash, the bag was getting less and less, and reality was setting in to say, wow, what is going on? And it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon that I finally drove home. And I lived with my parents, and they were just so sad. You know, my owner, my company had called, they knew something was there, they always knew I had a problem. And I walked into my house, and I just walked with my head down and went right upstairs, and just went to bed, shut my door. And I lay there, I couldn't sleep. And I hear about 6 o'clock, Bruce Bonifiglia owns Bonadent. He had come to the front door. My parents were in the front room. I heard him talking. I'm going to have to fire Mike. You know where the keys are in the company car. And they took it away. And that still wasn't a point. I just lost my job right then. But the next day I was still out partying again. And I can tell you that story to me, how in thinking, and if you think about it, and especially, I'm not a whole lot different than I was. What are you thinking? What could I possibly have been thinking, right? It's a legitimate disease. It can get a handle on even the best people. But that still didn't wake me up. But it clearly was when the wheels started to fall out. Now every story has a little humor in it, and I try to find the humor in everything. So, the story of me driving around that day, Bruce Bonifiglia later on, I ended up getting hired back and everything when I started getting it together. He said to me, I got to tell you one thing, for being a drug addict and alcoholic, when I picked your car up that day, it was so clean. I said, you know what I mean? That's what 30 car washes will do for you. So I continue partying, and this is a real turnaround. I started getting DWIs, okay? I get a DWI, a lot of people get it. I rationalized. I was out at a bar, got in a fight with my girlfriend. I leave, she calls the cops on me, DWI. So of course, I can say, what the heck, I got railroaded. DWI, you have to go through a program, okay, where they evaluate you through the Department of Motor Vehicles. And they ask you questions. And they determined that I should talk to somebody because I might have an alcohol problem. And I said, no way, I'm not going to talk to anybody. So the thing that happens when you don't comply is they take your license away. Because I was adamant, I wasn't going to do it. I think I was afraid because I knew deep down I did. And I didn't want to have to go to rehab or therapy or anything like that. So I just buried my head in the sand. I didn't do anything. So my license had been suspended. When your license gets suspended, they take away your registration, and your insurance gets canceled, and all this stuff, right? But you still got the plates. They don't come take your plates. So I knew all that. But for 4 years, I drove, knowing I didn't have a license, registration, nothing, back and forth from work. And for 4 years, and then from work to the bar, I'd leave the bar before it got light out, before it got dark, excuse me, because I figured, they're not going to pull me over when it's so light out. So I'm safe. And every time I was driving, my eyes were always in that rear view mirror. Because all I was looking for, I only had to get through about a mile and a half, was if a cop came up behind me and ran my plates, I was done. So if I saw a cop approaching, I'd pull into the plaza, do something quick. But this is the way the mind of an alcoholic works. So I drove that way for 4 years. I always knew that I'd get another DWI. I knew at some point I'd have to, as much as I drank, as much as I was out, because I didn't drink at home. So, sure enough, got popped one night. Coming home, I broke my rules. I was driving at night, coming from downtown. They pulled me over. Second DWI is a felony, serious charge, and there's a program that they did to try to rehabilitate you. People they want to stick behind, it's called drug court. I don't know if anybody ever heard of drug court. They put me in drug court, and what you got to do in drug court is got to go to classes. They put me in rehab. I'd come out of rehab. And they put you in classes. You got to go to court every Friday. There's a drug court team. You get up on the podium. They ask you questions. How your week going? What are you learning in the AA meetings? You doing good? And so every week I get up there and lie. Because I never quit drinking. I just wanted to get through this, knock off that charge, because I don't want to be a felon, and then get back into life. Suck it up for a year. I can do it, but I didn't want to quit drinking, and I never did. So they knew, I think, and this is the guilty part of it, they were rooting for me. This judge, he loved me like a father, and I was just lying through my teeth with a smile. And one day I walked in, and they knew I was drinking. They called me out on it. I walked up to that podium. Mike, Judge, how's your week been? Another great week, Judge. Clean and sober. Really, Mike? Now I'm getting a little suspicious. Do you drink Citron and soda, Mike? That's my drink. Knew I was done then. Were you down the Flats? That's what the place downtown used to be called, which is my hangout. See, I not only, because I said drink at home, I didn't want to drink at home, I wanted to be at the bar. So I was still out drinking the bar in this little town like they didn't know. Were you at the Flats? Yeah, Judge, I was at the Flats. Officer, take Mr. Alessio to jail. And there I was. I'd been in jail before, for a few days at a time as, when I got popped for, the DWIs, in there for a couple days before they release you. And actually, I had been in jail. One of the drug courts, they do urine samples on you to drug test you. And, actually, my first week in drug court, this is a nice one. It was my very first week in drug court. I didn't know they did piss tests. Excuse me. So I sat there. It was my first week, and I had been doing coke like 3 nights before. So I see the probation officers start calling people down, and I'm looking one at one. They're going, and I said, "Uh-oh." And so my very first week, they call me in. I'm like, "Oh, come on, please, be out of my system." And I do it, come back out. All of a sudden, I see the probation officer get with the team. So I could be the only one in his first week to have to spend the weekend in jail. So at this point, though, it's more serious because they were going to throw me out and they were going to make me do my time. So I sat in jail. When you go to jail, you have to do your first 24 hours in isolation, small cell. And I was sitting there and I was crying. And all I could think about was this guy right there. All I could think about was the hopes and dreams of a young kid who had everything going for him. And I sat there. I was a 41-year-old alcoholic and drug addict who was at the bottom and whose life had just passed him by. And I just, in a blink of an eye, I wondered what happened. And so they put me in with the rest of the inmates, and I figured out I'm just going to ride out my time. I think I would have had to have done 6 or 8 months. And one night, it was outside of visitation hours, the correction officer came up to me and said, "Alessio, you got visitors." And I went down there, got my orange jumpsuit on, and he sat me down in the visitation room, because I figured, once again, I'm out of my job, my parents are going to disown me. And so I sit down, and in comes walking in 2 of my co-managers and the owner of my company, Bruce Bonfiglia. And they sat across from me, and they said, "We love you, and we're going to stick with you, and we believe in you, and whatever's got a hold of you, we're going to get through this." And I cried, and they said, "Do what you got to do now, and we'll see you at work whenever you're ready to come back to work." And I was like, wow, the power of people who stick behind you. And here were these guys I had just blatantly not respected in what I did, but they were sticking with me. And that was January 1st, 2004. And there would have been no way, nor did I plan for it, that I never drank again. I never drank and never did drugs again after that date. And I wish I could tell you that that was my plan. I wish I could tell you I walked out of that visitation center saying, "These guys stuck with me, I'm going to do it." But that wasn't the way it is. What they did, and the difference was, they kept me in drug court. They too stuck behind me, "You can do this." But they knew I needed a little different level of monitoring. I clearly wasn't going to be able to do it on my own. So what they did was, "I'll introduce you to what saved my life." This is what saved my life, and I tell everybody that. I was on what's called house arrest, ankle bracelet, and this device right here is what's called a sobriety. It hooks up to your phone. House arrest, they can monitor where you are. I was allowed to go back and forth to work. And what happens, these two things work in unison. When I came in my house, it sets this thing off. There's little sirens that go off. And when the sirens go off, you got 2 minutes to pick it up off its docket, which is hooked up to the phone. There's a straw there, and you got to blow into it. And the thing detects alcohol content in your system. So, and then when you're hanging out during the night, it sporadically goes off. It won't go off like it wake you up at like 2 in the morning. They draw the line there. But it might go off at 9 and 11, and you got to blow off. So you don't think that, hey, as soon as I come in, I'll blow, I'll be cool, and then I'll get hammered. They see through that. So this forced me to not drink. And that was the start I needed. For my whole life, 360 days a year probably, I woke up with a hangover, massive hangover. And now, I was like, wow, I feel great. I can't believe it. I started doing things, I was getting into it too. I was reaching out at meetings, talking a little more honestly. I was helping other people. People were coming to me after I got a month or 2 months in, newbies coming into the program. Was like, "Man, look hey, I don't know, I've only been sober 60 days, but if I did it 60, you can do it for 1 or 2. And I started working out again. I started kind of find that athlete inside of me that I always knew was there. And that's when my story started to change. I had 6 months left of drug court. They had me on that thing. They told me at the 4-month mark, we'll take you off it if you want. I think they tell me that I'm the only one that ever said, no, keep me on house arrest. I'm not ready yet. I'm a little nervous. I'm not ready yet. So I kept on it right till the end. I graduated drug court, and I felt so good, and it started to accomplish. I was doing better at work. I felt like I had purpose, and I never went back. I never started drinking again. I was getting things done. And like I said before, with practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes predictable. New things I was doing were my new predictable things. I had just not been at the bar every night, but doing other good things. And one of them was, I had a goal years ago, and it was really just a fantasy years ago, about doing what's called the Ironman Triathlon. So I don't know what you know about it, if you've ever seen it. They put the finals, the World Championships on TV every year. And it had started back in 1979, so it was gaining momentum in the 80s. But it was like it's like the toughest race in the world, they call it. And it was always like incredible. And I'd always say, wow, I'm going to do that someday. And I knew some people who they had triathlon magazines. So, you know, back in my heavy partying days, I had the magazines and I'd read it. And, you know, while I'm getting hammered and doing coke and reading it, and I'm going to be a triathlon. I'm going to do that Ironman someday. But I never did anything about it. You know, at some point I started smoking cigarettes too, so that helped. So then now I'm like, I think I can do this. One big problem was I didn't know how to swim. So the Ironman is you swim for 2.4 miles, then they got changing time. You change into your bike gear, you bike for 112 miles, change into your running gear, and then you run a marathon. So the swim part was going to be the challenge, and I learned how to swim because you got to swim 2.4. When I joined the college, because that's where I had to swim, I couldn't even make it down one lap. And I still wasn't a great swimmer when I walked into the water on that day, but I was going to try. And I knew it was going to be close. There's a time limit on it for each leg of the journey. You got 2 hours and 20 minutes to get out of the water for your 2.4 mile swim. And I was there, 3,000 people started, and it wasn't going good. I remember I started off and I was about 200 yards into it and almost having a panic attack because you could stop. And I'm stopping and I say, come on, you gotta get going. So I got going, and I remember hearing all of a sudden, I don't know how much time there is left because there's always a big announcer there, and he says, and ladies and gentlemen, here comes our last swimmer, Alessio. So I'm going, and I think I got 300 yards to go, and I'm just trying. And I decided to take a little break. I rolled over on my back, and I hear the announcer go, oh no. So I said, that can't be good. Time must be short. I better reach over, and I'm trying. And sure enough, I made it. With 6 minutes to spare. It was 2 hours and 14 minutes. And I knew I'd be fine if I got through that because I was a decent biker and a decent runner, and it was a great day. And it was a great day to do something and put my mind to, whatever you guys might do as far as goals do. That was crossing the finish line. That's not a super great time, but any time's a good time when you're doing the Ironman. And that's crossing the finish line right there. I only did it because I was clean and sober. I've done 2 more since. I ended up being a best in runner. I was a good runner. I have done 10 marathons. Corsi and I, and a lot of people, we do a lot of triathlons, a lot of 5Ks. I qualified and did the Boston Marathon one year, and that's just something I love in life, being healthy, and as well as maintaining the message that you can do these things in life when you set your mind to it, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, even this guy right here. So, and that's not only to say that it's just sports related. You know, I was 50 years old and always thought that, getting married and that aspect of my life would have passed me by. And I met a beautiful woman and we got married and had a beautiful marriage with 250 people, my friends and family there. One of the highlights of my life, and it was a great day. I had a beautiful son, Nicholas. Out of the marriage, and it was just one more thing that was exciting that you should say, never give up. But the most proud moment, and no matter what else I do in life, the thing I'll be most proud of was something with my family. When I was still drinking, my parents were getting older. And I would sit at the bar and be hammered, and I'd say, God, what are you going to do when they call? Somebody calls. It was before cell phones, so I figured they'd call the bar and know I was there and say something happened to one of your parents. And you're going to have to go to the hospital. You'll be drunk. It'll be an embarrassment. Your family will be there, and you just know it's going to happen. And I pray that it just doesn't happen. Well, that call came on April 23rd, 2008. And I've been sober for 4 years, and I was able to go to the hospital. My mother was passing away. She'd had a heart attack. And I was able to sit next to her and hold her hand. And she passed away with respect that she deserved. Because she was the same mother that stood by me when I graduated drug court. Her 41-year-old son, smiling from ear to ear as I held my drug court certificate, just like she did when I graduated high school. And she was the same mother who had to, with her 41-year-old son, drive over while he had to retake his road test and sit in that back seat as I drove around taking my road test with a smile on her face, so proud of her son, just like she had done at the same place when I was 17 years old. That'll always be the thing I'm most proud of. And make sure you take care of your family. They love you. They're rooting for you. It might always appear that way, but they do, and they'll always be behind you. So alcohol and drugs have taken over my life. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I always knew what I wanted to be. I remember one time I was living in Detroit, and it was in using days, and it was my first experience. We went to the Detroit Lion football training camp, and I remember sitting there, and I was watching the coaches. And they were, come on, get over, blowing whistles, running the drills. Some of you guys know just like I do now. And I knew I was watching there, and I was like, that's me. That's the guy I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be a coach. I was supposed to be motivating people. But I just didn't have the ability to do that. I lost the ability to unlock the potential inside me. And many times in my life, just like you will, you're going to come to a crossroads where you're going to have to make choices. And you're going to know there's a choice to the right path and there's the wrong path. And I always knew what the right thing to do was. I always knew what the right path was, but I never took it. And because it was too hard. Unfortunately, I chose to take the easy path. The path of least resistance. And when you do that, and you find yourself continuing to do that, if whatever it might be, your challenges might not be drugs and alcohol, it could be a wide variety of things. When you take that easy path, you'll end up somewhere where you don't need to be, and you're selling yourself short in your life if you take that path. You've listened to my phrases, you know Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes predictable. One I think I forgot to tell you is there's no such thing as a problem in life without a gift for you in its hands. Remember that. Every problem. We need problems. We need problems because we seek their gifts. So when you run up into a problem, instead of saying, man, I got screwed on that, try to find the light at the end of the tunnel as to why it might have happened and what good can come from it. Whatever it might be. But the biggest thing, as far as being preemptive or preventative, so you don't end up like this, and I want to make no mistake about it, I wouldn't change anything in my life now. I probably would have said it when I was taking this mugshot. But now, my life had to be this way. If for any of you to, at whatever age, to be fulfilled in your life, I hope this does happen to you. If that's what it's going to take. I hope it doesn't, but if that's what it takes, then you got to deal with it. So, but as far as being preventive, so it doesn't happen, the number one thing to avoid all the heartache and problems is the word awareness. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Pay attention to your feelings, your reactions. Pay attention to your habits, your tendencies. If forever in situations in your head you're having to ask yourself, should I be doing this? Chances are you probably shouldn't. Remember that one, Todd Reed? So why does this disease happen? So why does this happen? Well, this is why it happens, because drugs and alcohol in these situations, it opens us up. Okay? This is my slant. It opens us up a little bit. I was shy, even though I was popular in school and hung with the supposedly cool crew. I was shy, a little introverted, and you get a little booze and drugs into you, opens you up a little bit more to talk to a girl or a guy, whatever your situation. It kind of levels the playing field. Everybody's having fun, right? So everybody feels good. So how do you know it's happening? This is a key part. If you have good self-awareness, keep an eye on it to know that you might be changing. Just for 1 second, open your eyes to the fact that, I don't know if this is good. Things like you're doing it when you really didn't intend on doing it. Or you really didn't want to do it. Whatever it might be. I know heroin's big now, but it wasn't around much, when I was out there partying, but whatever it might be, it's cheap, whatever it might be, you didn't intend on doing it. You think about using too much. You're missing practices, you're missing school, you're late for school, you're disrespectful maybe to your parents, you get in a fight with your parents. These are the little signs that something might be going on. You quit doing activities, extracurricular activities maybe that, hang on 1 second there, that's my alarm. Looks like I'm running over. You quit doing activities that you used to like to do. Here's a big one. If you do a party or you do something, you say to yourself, I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again. And maybe a month later or sooner, you're doing it again. What do you do if it does happen? If you do get hooked, if you do got a problem, it's simple, it's hard, but you got to open up your mouth. There's a lot of people you can talk to. It is easy talking to a person who's been through it, like a me, or like somebody else who's been through recovery and who has had a problem. It's always easier, and that's the magic of a lot of these programs, to talk to somebody who's been through it, because just for that reason, they've been through it. Don't let it go on. It's best, put it behind you, you're just going to be happier. Don't be embarrassed about it. You only got one life, you got to live it to the fullest. Last 3 things I want to say that I think will help you blossom and grow as a person is know yourself. Know yourself. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of what you do and what you stand for, your character. Walk tall with respect for yourself and others. Secondly, be yourself. You don't have to be anybody else. You have to be embarrassed about who you are. You all are unique. You're all beautiful. You've got a lot to offer inside to take this world by storm. You're young. You're going to be out the door soon. There's a old poem by Dr. Seuss. I know it's goofy, but I love it. Today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. And that rings true with me. And lastly, like yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't be too hard on yourself. You got to know that you're a good person. Know that you're doing the right thing. Be happy in life. Smile. And enjoy life. This represents who you guys were, the you. This is who I was. A life in its beginning. That's who I am now. The underdog. The guy who kind of crawled back onto the scene from the bottom. But when you walk away today, that's why I make this image the biggest, that's what I want you to remember. I want you to remember the potential when you go down that wrong path and what drugs and alcohol can do to your life. You're going to be facing challenges in life no matter what they are. Challenges where you're going to need to uncover, because it's already there, uncover courage. And I promise you when it comes time to do that, that the courage will be there for you. But remember, courage isn't always the roar of a lion. Courage is sometimes just a tiny voice that when you're laying in bed at the end of the day says, I'm going to try again tomorrow. My name is Alessio. I'm an alcoholic and drug addict who got off the sidelines and got into the game of life. I hope you guys get into the game of life too.